Hello and welcome back to Not Overthinking. It's the new year. Tamor, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty great, man. I think the year's off to a good start. We haven't done the pod for, I think, 2 weeks, right? Here's the thing. You were skiing last week, which we'll talk about in a sec. And then the week prior...
Didn't we do it the week prior? I feel like we have missed 2 weeks. Yeah, we didn't do it like the week prior with Christmas and breaks and holidays and all that stuff. I'm sure our audience will forgive us for missing.
Yeah. So sorry for the inconsistency. I feel like we're in a good thing now where essentially we have like a really low friction setup.
Yeah, filming on the iPhone.
Yeah.
We've got these handheld microphones which stay in this flat at all times.
Yeah.
So whenever Tamor comes to visit, we're just like, should we do a pod? And normally Tamer's like, no, I don't want to do it. And I'm like, we've got to do it. So here we are.
Yep. Yeah, I think my New Year's off to a good start. I properly got back into the gym this week. I've really started watching my diet. Like, I'm tracking my calories on MyFitnessPal.
Whoa.
I'm like force feeding myself, like even when I don't want to eat, and I'm just like eating, all that stuff.
Like, what's your goal here?
I'd like to put on a bit more mass. I've just hovered at around like 72 kg for like, I don't know, most of my adult life. Maybe since graduating or something.
Why do you want to put on more mass?
I think aesthetic reasons. Yeah, I think like...
Aesthetic reasons for whom?
Sorry?
Aesthetic reasons for whom?
For me and for other people. Okay, here's the thing. All right, I'm gonna keep it real. I think as a man in society, you are taken a lot more seriously if you are well built than if you are skinny. And I think my natural body type is on the skinny end of things. And I used to be more skinny. Like I think I'm okay now. I'm still like I wouldn't say I'm like skinny, but like I do remember like before I started going to the gym like at all, or before I used to do any kind of working out, there was a marked difference going from like before to after I started like working out a little bit.
In terms of how people treated you?
Yes.
I'm skeptical about this.
Really?
Can you give me any examples in which you feel like in any situations in your actual life where you feel someone would have treated you differently had you been a little bit more hench?
It's obviously you don't actually have the counterfactual. I think it's more of a general vibe, but I don't think it's in my head.
Okay, but let's say you are kind of twice as skinny as you currently are.
Yeah.
Given the stuff that you do you think anyone would actually care? Do you think like when you're on a Zoom sales call with some like FP&A person across the world, they're going to be like, oh, hello, this guy's a bit skinny?
Yeah, I agree over Zoom, it doesn't really make too much difference.
Okay.
But
if you're kind of meeting investors in person?
Dude, I'm not thinking
about?
Just from like the work context. I'm just thinking like just day-to-day interactions. As a man, if, for example, you have a deep voice rather than a higher pitched voice, and you are well-built rather than, like really skinny or really overweight, people just assume that they take you more seriously, right?
If you're taller rather than shorter?
Yes.
If you're better looking rather than less good looking?
Yes.
Okay, so these are all the things that on that spectrum of like, you want people to have that subconscious thingy of, quote, taking you more seriously.
For sure. I do think it's a thing. Are you really denying this? I would have thought this is something you'd be like, yeah, dude, like 100%, this is such a thing.
I think...
You're telling me people don't judge people by their appearances? Of course they do.
Okay, what I'm saying is that in your specific case, you gaining 5 kilograms of mass is going to make not one iota of difference to the way that anyone in your life treats you. I think if you're going from an extreme to the middle ground, then by all means.
Okay, you agree there is a sliding scale, you just think I'm past the threshold where it matters?
Correct.
Okay, look, I think I'm probably past the threshold.
I think, and in particular, it was that thing that you said where I'm tracking my calories and I'm kind of forcing myself to eat even when I don't feel like it because I want to gain some mass. That is, a lot of people will say there's a pretty unhealthy relationship with food. Generally, our bodies are pretty good at moderating the amount of food that we need and setting us to a reasonable base point. You're 72 kilograms.
My body's pretty good at hovering around 72 kg.
So you're at 72 kg. It's pretty reasonable. Not one person in your work or social life would realistically actually treat you differently if you were 74 or 75 or 78 kg rather than 72. If you were sort of 82 kg and super ripped and stuff and you took off a hoodie and people saw six-pack abs or something, some people might be like, oh, bro, you've been working out.
Yeah.
But beyond that, and beyond a few comments on the podcast being like, oh, Tamer's biceps looking good, it seems to me that you're beyond the point where it matters. And if you're actually, doing this thing like, this terminology of I'm forcing myself to eat so that I can put on this mass, I would really question to what end.
I think they're all okay. Like, granted, I doubt people would treat me differently, like in my day-to-day life. But there is also just like some personal aesthetic preference there.
Oh, sure. I agree. that wasn't your initial.
No, the first reason I said was supposed to aesthetic preference, and then I also wanted to keep it real and say that like okay.
Fine.
So I mean, I think both factors are at play.
So you have a personal aesthetic preference for looking a bit more hench. Yeah, I mean, I think that's very reasonable. Like for dudes, all clothing looks better on you when you're a little bit more hench. But if for example, you wear a hoodie, like no one will be able to tell whether I'm a 70 kg or 65 kg or 85 kg in this particular hoodie.
I don't know. I think they probably would, mate. They definitely would, mate. Okay, look, I agree. Like if we're talking like tangibly,
yeah,
like what's going to change, I agree. Not much will change.
I'm all for you doing this for yourself because you want to build healthy habits. You want a body that looks nice for your own personal aesthetic. All I'm doing is questioning your assumption that it would actually change the way that other people treat you because you're beyond the point where that's going to make any difference to your life. If you're an actor, sure. If you're a model, sure. If you're a freaking FP&A salesman for a B2B SaaS tool, like, you've got a girlfriend already. Like, bro, come on.
Okay, let me try and come up with this. Okay, so I do think the personal aesthetic preference is there. And like, I think that matters, right? Like,
I agree. Yeah, I'm not in that.
Yeah, I think that matters. I'm sure I can come up with a situation. All right, here's a situation. You're walking down the street. It's getting dark. A man approaches you who's considering mugging you.
Sure.
What's going through his mind is, could I take him?
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed. Yeah.
And what's going through your mind is also, could I take him? Oh, there was this really like funny TikTok or something of like two like dudes walking past each other and it's like captioned like what dudes think when they walk past each other. And as they walk past each other, they're like really friendly. They're just like, hey man. And then as they like walk past each other, and then it sort of voices the internal monologue. And then he goes to one person, he's like, yeah, I could take him. And he goes to the other person, the guy's like, yeah, I could take him.
Nice. Okay.
Anyway, that's a tangent. Look, I think okay, I said personal aesthetic preference.
Yeah, agreed. It affords you some marginal extra level of quote protection if 72 versus 75 kg visibly is the difference between someone deciding they could take you and therefore mugging you and deciding that they maybe could take you and therefore deciding not to mug you because it's not worth the risk.
Okay, fine. Look, I can't think of good situations.
No, I think that one's reasonable. I don't think it's a needle mover for.
Look, it's not a needle mover. I mean, the way I'm also thinking about it is like if wanting to like weigh 77 kg was me committing to a life of like eating more than is comfortable and just having to do that for the rest of my life, like I definitely wouldn't do that.
Sure.
It feels like it's a temporary thing of like, look, the days you go to the gym, eat some more, and then you'll get up to like, you'll make some gains, and then it's easy to kind of keep that as like your lifestyle and hover around there.
Yeah, I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
That seems reasonable.
So yeah, I've had a good week because I'm back in the gym properly. I've started like caring about my diet and yeah, probably decent. How are you doing? How's the year been? You were skiing the past week?
I was skiing the past week. It was quite nice. We were in Zermatt in Switzerland. Initially, the plan was to go to France, but then France locked down for the UK. And so we went to Switzerland instead. It was nice.
What was the setup? What was the group?
It was me. It was our friend James from school. It was a few people that James knew from university. So one guy called Sheikh, who I knew from before. He's a UCL medic. There's a guy called Dan, who's a software engineer. Works at a startup. There's a guy called Bertie, who's an investment banker. And there's a guy called Tim, who's also a medic. Solid group of lads.
So you knew like a couple of them?
I knew two of them, yeah. And I got to know three of them through the course of the trip.
Nice. What was do you have any like low optionality insights or takeaways?
One thing that was interesting is that, so there was a piano in the lobby downstairs in the hotel. And there was one day towards the end where me, Tim and Bertie, we were just like, couldn't be asked to ski because Bertie was injured, I was semi-injured and lazy, and Tim was somewhat lazy. And I started playing the piano with the chords thing and encouraging people to sing along. And initially we did a few rounds on the piano, and the people in the the owner of the hotel was like, "Oh, this is so good, it's making me cry. Can you play Amelie?" Someone played a bit of Amelie, played a bit of Einaudi. And then we started doing the singing along thing, playing chords and singing along. Yeah. And Tim and Bertie hadn't really done that sort of stuff before, and seemed very visibly uncomfortable about it initially. Yeah. Because of the, that's cringe kind of thing. Yeah. And then they got into it and really enjoyed it. And afterwards, Bertie said that actually, that playing the piano and singing along was really fun. I've never done that before. I want to do more of that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Yeah.
And it kind of got me thinking that I was thinking about this around I was chatting about this with Bobby Siegel, on the podcast last week.
Okay.
About cringe thresholds.
Right. Yeah.
And there are certain things. I think we all have a different cringe thresholds in different areas of our life.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think broadly, it is a good thing to to increase that cringe threshold so that
you find fewer things.
Cringe.
Yeah.
And I think singing in public, especially like playing piano and singing in public, is a very, very cringe thing that most people would be beyond their cringe threshold initially. Yeah. But with enough practice, you realize that actually no one cares, and it's kind of nice and it's quite fun to do. And obviously, I'm not advocating that singing in public is a moral good, but I'm advocating that finding different areas of your life where you can, in a way, systematically increase your cringe threshold so that you find fewer things cringe is just a generally good thing to do. Yeah. Overall, encourages you to go more outside your comfort zone.
We've talked about. I feel like we had a podcast.
The asymmetry of cringe.
The asymmetry of cringe.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very easy to call something cringe, but it's not easy to get something. Pull something back from the or something like that.
And so the cringe window is always widening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was good. Good thing on the trip. Played a few games. Netgames.io is actually great.
I know we play Avalon.
We played Avalon in there. We played some Enigma as well, which was quite fun. So that was good. And overall, good vibes. Loved it. I think the thing with a ski trip is that when I'm not on a ski trip, I think, I can't wait to get on a ski trip. After a day of skiing, I'm like, I actually quite fancy a break tomorrow. And it's like, I've only got 5 days of skiing, but maybe we'll have a bit of a lie-in. Maybe, you know what? It's 2:00. We could ski until 4, but it's getting a bit icy. It's not really ideal. Yeah. I'd quite like to go to the hotel and just chill in the jacuzzi and go to the sauna or whatever.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I'll tell you what the issue with skiing is. The issue with skiing is the colossal amount of faff it takes before you're actually bloody skiing, right? There's all the dressing up. There's all the getting your boots, getting your skis, like walking to the starting thing.
Yeah, there's a lot
going on a steel. Like if you could just teleport to the top of a thing, ski down and stuff, and there wasn't all the faff, like you'd probably do more of it, right? How much of your issue is the faff?
I think actually the issue is less the faff. So for example, let's say day 2 of skiing, it gets to 2 p.m. You actually could ski for another 2 hours and you're at the top of the mountain already.
Yeah.
Or you could take the gondola all the way down and then go to the jacuzzi.
Yeah.
At that point, like it's a toss up. It's a 50-50 about whether I'd want to take the gondola down and just chill or actually do the skiing properly. Yeah. So I think in that context, I've already done the sunk cost of booting up.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But it's it's quite like a physically demanding thing where you really feel exhausted by the end of it. But it's great because you do really feel like you've earned your lunch. Especially after the trundle back to the freaking hotel.
I hate the bloody
carrying
trundle,
the skis, the boots, like back.
Yeah.
One time, me and James just got a taxi. I've paid like 10 quid for a 3-minute taxi ride to the ski lift, and we were like, "This is so worth it." Yeah. Skiing was good. I think I have a similar attitude with sort of holidays in general. I think, like for me, a good holiday is one where there is some holidaying. Some working. Yeah. And back in the day, I used to be like, why would you go on a holiday why do people go to beach holidays just to read a book? Yeah. But it's quite nice to just read a book on the beach.
I'd love to just sit and read now, actually, yeah.
Whereas before I used to be like, I'd adventure every single day. Yeah. Now a bit more like, one day on, one day off. Yeah. I think I mentioned this on a podcast maybe 100 episodes ago, but one thing that the blogger Tynan says, is the ideal setup is every day you want to find 2 food things and 1 activity, and that's all. So you food things being like probably lunch and dinner and an activity somewhere in the middle, and then you chill in the morning, you don't worry about it too hard. You chill after dinner, you don't worry about it too hard. Yeah. You don't try and tick off too many things off the bucket list.
I totally agree, yeah. Yeah, I think 2 food things and 1 activity is great. And then I think just like the evening chill DMCs at night and stuff, I think that's where a lot of the value is.
Yeah, that's good vibes.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page regarding like skiing duration. Like some people are like super into it and just want to like maximize time out on the slopes. I think like after like a sesh, I'm very happy to like take the rest of the day off and just do something else. Yeah. I think I've told you this story, but I don't know if I've said it on the pod. My most embarrassing moment in my life to date was on a ski trip a few years ago. It was the varsity ski trip, the sort of Oxford and Cambridge ski trip that happens every year. And I was on it. And like, I've been skiing like a handful of times. We used to go with the school and stuff. Like I'm okay. I can comfortably do red slopes. Black slopes are a bit choppy, but like I can survive. I'm that kind of level. And one of my friends from Cambridge was also on the trip. He wasn't like part of my group. He was also on the trip, and we're like, oh yeah, let's meet up and ski together for one afternoon or something. And so we met up, and we were just like grabbing lunch before heading out to the slopes, or and I was just kind of asking him, oh, what kind of what kind of level are you? What runs do you go on? That kind of thing. Just like normal kind of conversation. And he was like, a bit of everything. Yeah, I'm not too fussy really. And I thought like, oh man, this guy must be he's probably just like an amateur. He probably doesn't know what like different runs are or something. And then he was like, what about you? And I was like pretty confident. I was like, yeah, I'm really comfortable on reds. I can do some blacks, And then shortly afterwards, it transpired that he had been skiing like every year with his family since like the age of 2. He was on the like MIT actual ski team where they've gone on like ski trips for a month on end just skiing, and he was taking part in like the competitive university races later that day. And like he was going backwards on black slopes and like teaching us all sorts of stuff. And like I was talking to this guy as if he'd like never been skiing before. Oh yeah, it was so cringe.
That doesn't sound like a huge. It doesn't sound like a huge deal.
Mate, you had to be there. Just like okay, I think just like
when did the penny drop?
Sorry.
When did the penny drop for you? When you were like, oh crap.
I think I saw how often do you go? I think when he was like, yeah, my family and I have just been going every year since I was like really young or something. I was like, oh, okay.
Damn, you must be pro.
Yeah, and then like the plot thickened and so on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just super
if that's the most embarrassing moment of your life, I think we need to get you into more embarrassing situations.
Yeah, maybe. All right, look, let's go on to the meat of the pod. I had a tweet that I would like to discuss.
Certainly.
I think I sent it to you a few days ago for us to discuss. Here we go. All right. So are you familiar with, I'm guessing you're familiar with the term like blue pill, red pill. Okay. So there's a different context, right? There's like, the blue pill and the red pill are, I think it originates from the Matrix, in which if you take the blue pill in like the setup, then you can go on living your life and not seeing, in the Matrix, they basically live in a simulation or something, right?
Yeah, they live in a simulation, and Morpheus says to Neo, you can, if you take the blue pill, you can forget that you're living in a simulation. You can live your life as a normal person, but if you take the red pill, then there's no going back. Now you know that your life is a simulation. And
yeah. Yeah. So basically, the blue pill is a metaphor for just kind of burying your head in the sand and being happy in your ignorance about something. The red pill is a metaphor for like unplugging from the system, like seeing reality for what it is, and like seeing the hard truths,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And the metaphor has also been extended further by like online discourse, I guess mainly Twitter. Are you familiar with like what the connotations are of being black pilled or white pilled?
Black pill I've heard of in the whole like men's rights activists, where my understanding of red pill is that once you take the red pill, you realize that you live in a femme-centric society, and
blah, yeah.
Blah, blah. You take the black pill and you're like, screw everything.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my only understanding.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Okay, so outside of the Matrix context, like the manosphere, so like sort of the manosphere. How do you describe the manosphere?
Don't ask me.
What's that?
I've never heard of it.
Okay, the manosphere is like a few different communities online that kind of, ostensibly talk about sort of what it's like to be a man in society, and and
encourage men to go from 72 kg to 77 kg because it will make people respect them more. That kind of stuff.
The manosphere would probably agree with that. But I think also a bunch of other people probably agree with that. But the manosphere, it includes subgroups of like men's rights activists. It includes like, the pickup artists. It includes, people who wouldn't identify as either of those two, but just like generally like spaces for men to like chat to other men about like what it's like to be a dude.
Yeah, and the collective issues that.
Yeah, and look, it often trends. These, in my view, these groups often trend in a, there are often problematic aspects around, like, I think, sort of unhealthy attitudes towards women and stuff like that. But, broadly, in the manosphere is also, like, latched onto the terms blue pill and red pill, where if you are if you are red pilled, you know this. All right, this is not me saying this. This is like the general like manosphere view. If you're red pilled, you see that actually men are like men are like really hard done by society. Is very like female centric in lots of different ways, and I think they sort of espouse like traditional concepts of masculinity plus a bunch of other stuff. Okay, so red pill also has connotations in the manosphere, but I'm not talking about it in that context. All right, so we have red pill, blue pill, and then you mentioned like black pill and white pill. So being black pilled is like being red pilled to the almost like to the extreme.
Okay.
Almost like to a level of like nihilism, where you see like a reality so starkly for what it is.
Yeah.
And it's like depressing and like, you know, it leads to nihilism in some sense.
I see. So Neo seeing the red pill in the Matrix and this is like, I want to do something about it. But had he taken the black pill, it would have been like, oh my God, life's
like
a simulation.
this is hopeless. Like,
there's literally no point. I'm just going to sit there and kill myself.
So I think the black pill, it's like, you know, directionally red pilling, but like much further to the point of nihilism. And then the white pill, interestingly, is like, so here's how I'd present the white pill. I'd say like the blue pill is just like, you know, ignorance is bliss, naivety, and you're fine, you're chilling, norminess, and you're happy with it. You don't really know what's going on. The red pill is like, okay, you've opened your eyes to the truth. The black pill is like, that leads you then down to the path of nihilism and despair. And then the white pill is like, oh, actually, like you see something positive from the reality. Okay. And so being pilled. Okay, so these are the pills, right? And now the
there's a lot of explaining to do for the tweet. It's great. I love it.
Okay, so those were the original pills. The 4 pills. Okay. And then people have, you know, there's something about the idea of pills that have made people start also sort of being pilled in other ways. Like, you know, I am, you know, you might say that like if you're getting into meditation, you might say, oh bro, I'm so meditation pilled now. I'm like meditation pilled, or like I'm, you know,
like I've drank the Kool-Aid for X.
Yeah. But to be,
I am X pilled.
Yeah. To be pilled about a particular thing means like you're on that wagon. You drank that Kool-Aid, whatever.
So apple pilled, bro. I'm like right in there.
I don't think anyone would say they're apple pilled. Okay, so there are nuances.
Drank the apple juice.
Nice. Okay, so this person, this person basically says, and look, pilled is like overused. It's kind of used ironically. It's kind of like overused just because it's funny, just to say like, oh, I'm like, like instead of saying like a really normal thing, like, you know, I like going on walks. You're like, bro, I'm
nature pilled.
Yeah, bro, I'm walking pilled. I was like, dude, just say you like walking, you know. Okay. And this in the tweet, the person is saying, I do think the concept of being pilled is legitimate. There are more and more things that once you realize them, permanently change how you experience reality. He says, Imo, what's unique about being pilled is that it's more like a paradigm break and one where it's difficult to revisit your prior perspective. So after you're pilled about something, it's just like a complete break. You know, it kind of splits your life into a before and after. It's a complete break in how you see the world. Yeah. And now you view the world like, in this new way.
Sweet.
And so that's kind of the concept of being pilled. And one terminology, I have a friend called Imran. Imran Mahmood, I think maybe you know him as well. I think he saw that. I think he saw in the back of one of our podcast YouTube videos that I had some like sort of Islamic philosophy books on my shelf or something, and he like DM'd me and saying like, oh bro, I saw you're reading some Al-Ghazali. You know, I've been trying to get more green pilled. I've been trying to get more green pilled these days, and he came up with the term green pilled as to like going down the sort of Islam rabbit hole more. And I think that's just like so good. And like I have a few other sort of, you know, Muslim friends who are also into kind of like reading about this stuff, the sort of more intellectual side of things, philosophical side of things, and like everyone's just like latched onto like, oh, green pilled is such a good term. Like that's just so good. And so that. Yeah, I was curious to hear like what kind of pills have you taken? What pill are you apart from being apple pilled?
Apple pilled. So it's basically like, what are the sort of paradigm shifts?
Yeah.
I think that I think the 4-hour work week really pilled me.
Yeah, Ferris pilled.
Yeah, Ferris pilled.
Yeah, what was the pilling there? It just shifted your goal in life towards like financial freedom.
Yeah. There's quite a lot of pilling there.
Freudian slip.
Where One of it, the parable of the Mexican fisherman felt me good.
Oh, a Mexican fisherman.
Where, post Mexican fisherman pill, I kind of realized this idea of a journey before destination, and really started to internalize that thing of actually it's not about
I have the good life.
I have the good life. It's not about aiming for some goal that's out there. Ain't about how I go there. Ain't about what's waiting on the other side. It's the climb, as Miley Cyrus would famously say.
Right.
I think I got fisherman pilled. I think I got Ferris pilled because the idea of, work a job, make money, retire, die. I just hadn't really considered why that was a default script.
Right.
And post 4-hour work week, I realized, oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, he's got a point. Why am I,
why must I toil?
Yeah, why must I toil for this retirement thing or whatever? And this idea of mini retirements, this idea of financial freedom, this idea of being actually able to make money while you sleep, genuinely changed the way that I approach life. And change the world.
Yeah.
I'll think of a few more. What's on your list of
what pills have I taken?
Yeah.
I do think I was also I was also Mexican fisherman pilled. Oh, dude, there's a really fun. I'm gonna search my photos. You can do text searches on Apple Photos and Google Photos. Yeah. It's unbelievable, and it also knows what's in pictures.
Yeah,
I searched for desk, and it showed me every. I was we were talking about desk setups or something a couple of nights ago with the lads. And I wanted to just show them I searched for desk, and it shows me all the pictures I have on my phone of desks. Unbelievable.
I had to when we were in Switzerland, because they have COVID passports and stuff, and some places you show your NHS COVID pass, and they also ask to see your ID. Yeah. I had no idea where my ID was, so I searched Apple Photos for a driving license, and I found it.
Oh wow!
It knew what my driving license was. I was like, whoa, mental. What other pills have I taken? I think the elephant in the brain was a pill for me. Where pre-elephant in the brain, I just hadn't really considered this. It was like the terminology of seeking social status and stuff.
Yeah.
Sort of unlocked an aspect of my brain where suddenly I could see that, oh, okay, so much of human behavior, including my own, is aimed at acquiring social status for various degrees and for various means.
Has that changed anything?
It hasn't really changed much about the way that I approach life, but it just sort of showed me, oh, okay, this is a thing that's going on with basically everyone.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. And then I think before I'd sort of felt a bit why am I doing this stuff? Is it attention seeking? Yeah, that kind of thing. And then afterwards I had the terminology, oh yeah, of course, status seeking behavior. That's fine. As long as the sort of extra things that a think does are good, then it's all good.
Right. Yeah. I can imagine being that being a bit of a pill. Sorry, just quickly. There's a joke format of on Twitter of bro, you're not X-pilled, you are just something. Of people saying oh, I'm something pilled as a more dramatic way of something,
Yes.
bad. You're not red pilled, bro, you're 27. Bro, you're not random color pilled, you're just a shitty person. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
You were thinking about pills that you've taken.
Yeah, pills that I've taken. I think I'm ex-fisherman pilled. Yeah, I think I'm getting more green pilled these days.
So what does that Can you explain that for the uninitiated? What's been the paradigm shift there?
I think the paradigm shift there has kind of been that, I've always been Muslim, born to Muslim family, all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of the time, for a lot of your life, you can just kind of operate on autopilot. And that's not to say that you don't believe, but I guess, I think for me, I've always been a Muslim, but actually probably in the last year or so, the consequences of that have really sunk in, where now I actually feel if I'm reading the Quran or reading some analysis for the Quran or something, I think previously I would have just read it as if it's just some archaic old kind of text or something, and not really taking it too seriously. But now actually the consequences of whoa, this is the word of God. Okay, let's
let's take it seriously.
Let's take this seriously, and let's let's understand what's going on here. And I think also feeling like, also taking it more seriously as like a framework to like live my life and to sort of reach some kind of sort of personal spiritual enlightenment kind of thing, of like really sort of seeing that like, whoa, okay, if all that stuff is true, then, you know, I could take this more seriously and use it as more of a framework towards living a better life. Whereas previously it was like, I'm kind of going through the motions, doing all this stuff. Yeah, I do believe, but yeah, not really taking it seriously as like a path to enlightenment, I guess.
Okay.
Whereas now I do see that as like the path to enlightenment for me.
Okay.
So yeah, I think I'm green pilled. I'm getting more green pilled.
Bro, you aren't green pilled. You're just 26.
I mean, certainly the way I felt. I think there's a couple of things I've done that have kind of given me a lot of confidence. The first is learning how to code, and just going through that process of like teaching yourself this thing from scratch by doing a lot of Googling. I think that I do think that is a bit of a pill, where it just changes your mindset of like your mindset after that is like, yeah, of course I can just learn anything online, like, you know. And I think going through that process, yeah, just like, I think learning to code, making stuff online, publishing stuff online, I think it's like being like coding pill is like after that, after you do that, it's like, okay, like I don't really think there's anything I can't learn online, and I don't think I need I don't need to ask for people's permission to do stuff. I think being coding pilled has kind of done that. And then I think being like maths pilled from doing a maths degree, it really, I mean, maybe this is just, maybe I'm misguided here, but I think I think it feels like after you've done that, I'm not worried about I might not be able to understand some concept or something in some other field.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think being math pilled and being coding pilled, it's kind of it leads to a sort of self-assuredness and like self-reliance, or like trust in like your ability to like do stuff on your own.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think there is some sort of pill that comes with putting yourself out there on the internet as well.
Yeah.
I mean, like if I think of people I know who have put themselves out there on the internet and people who haven't, like the ones who have, seem to just have much more confidence and the ability to just self-confidence, self-assuredness, taking more risks, that kind of stuff. I'm sure there is an element of people who are that way by default are more liable to put themselves out there on the internet. But I think one of the things that the sort of being, I don't know, internet public pilled or whatever you want to call it,
right,
does for you is that it really makes you realize that actually no one cares, and that a big part, like, you know, one of like in our YouTuber Academy, when Elizabeth does sessions, she says that when she first started on YouTube, she realized that 99% of the fear wasn't hitting upload on the first video, and as soon as you hit the publish button, 99% of the fear disappears.
Yeah.
And she was like, I wish someone had told me this, because I held myself back from starting a YouTube channel for so long, because it was that fear of like, all of the things associated with putting yourself out there online.
Yeah.
Whereas you do it and you realize that, this actually isn't that bad. The world hasn't ended. Fundamentally, no one actually gives a toss.
Yeah.
So like, great, I can just keep on doing this, and life is
Yeah.
And I think so many of us hold ourselves back through these. I was talking about this to a friend, internet friend, yesterday over dinner. We create these like prisons for ourselves, and I think one of the following this thread, one of the things I've noticed in myself and other sort of creator/entrepreneur friends is that just like everyone else, we are very liable to create prisons in our own mind. For example, the prison of, I have to publish my newsletter every Sunday.
Yeah.
And, I have to publish these 2 videos a week. And, I have to put out a sponsored video on time. And, I have to do this because of that. And because I made this commitment to this and that. We have to put out this podcast every week. Otherwise, something bad will happen. And you can go through quite a while, like not questioning those kind of assumptions. And certainly for me, a few months ago, I really tried to break down all the assumptions I had about my YouTube channel, kind of realizing that holding myself to a twice a week upload schedule just didn't make any sense anymore. I've been doing that for like 2 years at that point without really thinking about it.
Yeah.
And it was causing me to sort of feel a bit burned out and feel a bit annoyed and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think there was like a few conversations with like coaches and mentors and stuff of recognizing that you actually can choose to do most things in your life, and there's always like an option. And if you just really think about why you're scared about doing something and examine your assumptions behind it, there's very little that you can't do if you put your mind to it. I sound like Molly May right now. Have you? Have you been keeping up with the controversy?
Oh, okay. Wait. So what I've heard is I think Molly May made some comment about we all have the same 24 hours or something.
Yeah, and like,
but that's what I know.
If you
I've just seen memes about it.
If you work hard and you put your mind to something, then anyone can do it.
Yeah.
And a kind of vibes.
Yeah.
But said in the wrong way.
Who is she? What did she do?
She went on. She was on Love Island, and then post Love Island, became influencer. Post that, got a job at some big company.
Okay, sure.
But is like 22 years old.
Okay.
And so 22-year-old opining about how anyone can succeed if they set their mind to it.
Yeah.
Without the appropriate level of like cloaking it in virtue signaling and acknowledgement of privilege and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Leads to being cancelled. My point was around how, just like questioning assumptions and recognizing that, at least for me, I'm in control of a lot of things that I previously wouldn't have thought, and there is always an option.
Yeah.
Has been a bit of a paradigm shift.
Okay, nice. Yeah. I like that.
And I was chatting to an internet friend yesterday. She's got this big newsletter and has all these things. I was like, what does your dream business look like? And she was like, well, it's kind of annoying because we have to send this newsletter out every week. Like, what? Why do you have to send the newsletter out every week? She was like, whoa. She was like, yeah, every Thursday, sometimes the article's not ready, and then I have to burn the midnight oil because my team hasn't got the article ready. I was like, okay, what if you just sent it on a Friday instead? She was like, whoa, yeah, I don't have to send it on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And it's like little things like that where it often takes someone to point it out that you actually can change a circumstance that you're in.
Yeah.
Obviously, sometimes easier said than done. But
so what's the pill there?
I think the pill there is
What pilled you that way? Because you said being like creator pilled. Being creator pilled just made you not care about what people think so much.
Yeah, so that was the thing.
But then you said like even the creators.
Even the creators who, the quote employees would think, oh my God, these guys have so much autonomy.
Yeah.
End up creating their own prisons.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what sort of pill.
What pilled you? Okay, but it's just like a new shift. Yeah, fair play.
Yeah.
I've heard that being music theory pilled is actually a pill that makes you unhappy. Do you know the like two people on a bus meme?
No.
Okay, basically there's two people on a bus. One person is the bus is on like the side of a mountain.
Oh yes.
One person is on the window that's looking onto the mountain wall and they're just looking at rock and they're unhappy about it. And one person is on like looking out onto like the landscape and they're happy about it. And there's a variant of that meme where the person facing the wall knows music theory and the person looking outwards doesn't know music theory. And I've heard that like being well versed in like in music theory is a bit of a pilling because then you can't just like listen to, apparently you can't just like listen to music like a normal person.
Oh, I see.
And it could like ruin it for you.
Fair play.
So music theory folder.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of any other sort of off the top of my head paradigm shifting pills that I've taken. I've heard that like, self-love, self-acceptance is one of those like pilling moments.
Really?
Where there's this type of meditation, like loving kindness meditation that some people do.
Okay. Where
it's like you sit down for a while and you sort of imagine an outpouring of love towards your closest friends and stuff. And then after a while you imagine that outpouring of love at yourself. And there's a bunch of people I know who've done this, who've sort of just like broken down crying when they realize that, oh my God, like the way that I love my friends is also the way I can love myself.
Yeah.
And apparently that changes, that's like a paradigm shifting moment in someone's life where they like, oh, maybe I can be loved for who I am rather than for what I do.
Interesting. Well, is it like a gradual thing or is it like you do this thing once and it's like, boom, a whole new world?
I think often with people who take psychedelics, it's like they have that experience and it's like, boom, whole new world. Whereas with meditation, it's more like a gradual process of like glimpsing the moment and then it goes away again. You glimpse it again a bit. And I don't know, I'm just sort of vaguely getting into this stuff.
Nice. I'm trying to find that guy's tweet to see if people replied with interesting pills.
Yeah, if anyone's listening or watching to this, I'd be interested to, do post in the YouTube comments down below. Or if you're listening to this, then on the YouTube channel, what sort of pilling experiences have you had in your life? That would be interesting to see.
So this guy says that the concept of being pilled is like, it can't be like a gradual thing. It's like, it has to be something sudden that like, once you do this, once you see this, then you're like, building a habit of doing something For maybe like meditation pilled is actually a bad example, because like typically like it's a gradual habit. You like force yourself to do it for like a month, 2 months or something. You kind of slowly get more into it, and then it becomes a thing, and then maybe you drop off the bandwagon at some point and you come back. This guy's saying that the concept of being pilled specifically hinges on it being sudden and instantaneous, which is what he's reflecting on. Okay, so let me try and see if someone says systems thinking pilled.
Yeah, I don't get that. The whole systems thinking.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know what it means, to be honest.
Yeah, I can't really think of any more. I'll keep pondering the question, and maybe we'll bring some up next week.
I think some people experience being like sort of breathing pilled, where once you learn about like breathing, then it's like this paradigm shift of like just being like constantly aware of this thing.
Yeah, I didn't experience that after reading the book and doing a bunch of stuff about this.
Why we breathe, right?
Yeah.
Why
no,
we sleep.
just breathe. Breath
yeah.
by James Nestor.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I'm actually interviewing a guy on the pod for this season who is like the UK's biggest breathwork specialist.
Really?
Where we're going to, like, he was actually a student on YouTuber Academy in the last cohort. He's got a few 100,000 subscribers.
Oh, cool.
His name's Mike. So he and I are going to do some breathing exercises and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask him all about the breath.
I want to get breath pilled. Like, Breath by James Nestor didn't quite get me there. But I do want to get breath pilled.
I think one thing that felt like a. See, the thing with I think with all these pilling moments is that it's hard to recreate them in hindsight, because once you're pilled, you're like, cool.
That's just your worldview now, yeah.
And you kind of almost forget what it was like to be at a point where you didn't have that knowledge. And so, like, for me, I could say that I can remember the feeling of being pilled after reading the 4 Hour Workweek.
Yeah.
But I really wish I'd sort of written something about it.
What did I aspire to before then?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Like,
what did life seem like?
It just seems so. It now seems so freaking obvious that why would you aspire to the that sort of life?
Yeah.
That I aspired to before then, or maybe I just didn't even consider it. I think one book that pilled me in some capacity was The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt.
Oh yeah.
Where essentially breaking down what is morality and like how do different people make moral judgments, and the difference between like liberals and conservatives in the making of moral judgments and stuff. So that now it's like, now that I have that terminology of like moral taste receptors, and we talked about this on an episode. I'm actually rereading the book because there's a bunch of stuff that I want to revisit it so I can really think more critically about the arguments in it. Like, for example, the other day, there's this guy called Nick Huber, Sweaty Startup.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah.
So he got cancelled by.
Yeah. Can we talk about this for a second?
Yeah. So he kind of tweeted something along the lines of, "I have 18 employees in the Philippines who I pay $5 an hour. They're very grateful. They're very good, and more people should outsource work to the Philippines," or words to that effect.
Yeah, sure.
And a bunch of the kind of entrepreneur bros were like, "Yeah, you go, Nick."
Yeah.
And
keep crushing it, man.
Yeah. And a bunch of other people were like, "Oh my God, this is exploitation. This is bad. This is like the worst thing ever. This guy's the embodiment of evil. This guy's Satan, etc., etc." This guy ended up doubling down on it, and he was like, "Actually, free markets, economics, globalization, it's all good. Like, people who cry foul at this don't understand the world." Whereas other people were like, "This is just completely unjust. How can you possibly justify this? This is the worst thing ever." And I think I then decided that I was going to tweet to understand more about this thing. So I was genuinely curious. I was like, well, what's going on here? What are the moral arguments one side or another? I think in hindsight, the way I phrased this question was probably suboptimal. So I tweeted something like, genuine question.
I find it? Did you delete the tweet?
I deleted the tweet in the end, yeah. Genuine question. Why do people think that paying someone in the Philippines $5 an hour is a bad thing with a big B and big D, a big T? I was like 47. And again, a bunch of people in the replies were like, the replies were quite reasonable.
Okay.
The quote tweets.
Oh, mate.
where the dunking started.
Where the action happens, yeah.
And so initially it wasn't too bad, 2 or 3 quote tweets, who is this guy? What is he doing? And then I think actually it started being quote tweeted by people who are actually in the Philippines and for whom that is an issue that genuinely affects them.
Oh, really?
And so the quote tweets, like I was watching it like 2 days later, and it was like literally like climbing, and the quote tweets were climbing in the hundreds as I was watching it.
How did I miss it? Okay, wait. So what kind of stuff were people saying? What were people from Philippines saying? What were people but not from the Philippines saying?
See, okay, so this is the tricky thing, because like there were a lot of people from the Philippines who were also saying that this is fine because globalization. They were saying, it was just like, basically there's like a pro outsourcing camp, and there's an anti outsourcing camp.
Yeah.
And the anti outsourcing camp broadly tends to include more of the people who are in the position of actually being paid $5 an hour or a minimum wage or whatever.
The anti-outsourcing camp.
Yeah, like that paying
So you're saying
outsourcing work to other countries and paying them less than you would someone in the UK or the US is bad.
Wait, so no, are you saying that the people who do outsource work are more likely to think it's bad? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that potentially that's where it like I was unsure as to what was going on, because, for example, there were some people who do outsourced work who are pro outsourcing. There was a guy in the reply saying, I'm from India, I work in a call center, I get paid $5.50 an hour.
Yeah.
My US counterparts get paid $45 an hour.
Yeah.
But I freaking love it because it means like that's a really good wage for me. I can afford my tuition fees. I can get really nice meals. I'm living the great life.
Yeah.
And I work for this cool American company and life is great.
Yeah.
Like that is sort of the pro outsourcing, pro globalization view from someone on the ground doing the thing.
Okay, so what are the arguments against it?
The arguments against it is like, so that's what I was hoping to get from the tweet. What I got from the tweet were comments like, oh my God, just say that you support exploitation and leave. Like, oh my God, I can't believe this guy's a doctor. The sorts of people they let into medical school these days. Oh, this is what's wrong with the world. Oh, Cambridge educated doctor. Oh my God, this tweet makes me so angry. I can't even sleep. This is how bad that is. Like, it was that level of sort of that level of like vitriol in the quote tweets.
Wow, mate.
There was a bit more debate in the replies, but it's really the quote tweets where the cancellations happen.
What are the arguments?
The arguments were broadly, this is, okay, so one argument is equal work for equal pay. Okay. You know, if I'm doing a job in Pakistan, why should I be paid a fifth of what my US counterparts make?
Yeah.
Another argument which was related to that was the sort of unfairness kind of argument.
Yeah.
Where also, so I think there's two things. I think there's unfairness, which relates to this. Well, it's surely not fair that someone is being paid less for doing the same work just because they're in a different part of the world. And then there is also a coercion argument, which is that people who are like the free market bros would say that, well, it's a choice to work this job.
Yeah.
But actually the people who are in the sweatshop or who are being paid $5 an hour in the call center or in the developer or like wherever they're working, it's not really a choice because they have no real other options, and therefore they are forced by necessity to take this low-paying job, which devalues their labor.
Right.
And therefore that is bad. Those were the two main things. There was a lot of stuff around. Yeah, I mean, like exploitation, I guess, kind of is more about that fairness argument that it's exploitation, therefore unfair, therefore bad.
Right.
And I mean, I didn't get much in the way of like a nuanced debate here. So I've actually started reading 3 books about this. One of them is called What Money Can't Buy: The Moral Limits of Markets, which I've nearly finished on Audible, which is really interesting. We'll definitely talk about that in an episode. That's about like, you know, in theory, this idea of capitalism and like let the market decide should theoretically work, and economists are a big fan of that kind of thing. But actually, there are some domains in life in which the market taints the thing. So that's interesting. There's another good book called Globalization: A Very Short Introduction, which I've started listening to on Audible, and I've started reading because this isn't available on Audible. Another one called The Globalization Paradox. Why nation states, democracy, and free borders or something can't coexist, or words to that effect. Because I'm so interested in this. It's like this is a topic that is, you know, as an entrepreneur, the whole, and you know, and as someone who's been Tim Ferriss pilled, the whole outsource work to places like India, Pakistan, the Philippines, Bangladesh, where you can take advantage of geo arbitrage, almost seems like a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't you do it? But then there seem to be very strong arguments on the side of like, actually, this thing is bad.
By strong arguments, you mean strong voices? Or
Strong voices.
Arguments.
I'm sure there are compelling arguments as well. Like in all these things, like the real answer is like a gray area. And there's no like globalization good, globalization bad. And that's what they say in a very short introduction as well, that the issue of globalization has become such a heated, like, you know, in the last sort of 2 decades or so, especially in the last decade with the whole rise of the internet and remote work and all that kind of stuff, where, you know, there are some people who are like probably the capitalist right-wing bros that are like, obviously free market's good, globalization good, it's all good. And then there are people who are like, globalization is just like blanket bad, it's exploitation. And the real answer is somewhere in between. You you know, the people who cry exploitation, who say that, well, it's unfair that this person in the Philippines or in Pakistan gets $5 an hour. Well, you know, if it was not economically viable for that company to bring jobs into that country for $5 an hour, they wouldn't do it. So would you rather a $5 an hour job or no job at all?
Yeah.
And think people like the Indian government, the Filipino government are very, very keen, apparently, from what I've been reading on Twitter, for more companies to outsource labor to these countries.
Yeah.
Because it brings trillions of dollars into the economy.
Yeah.
And that is a, quote, good thing.
Yeah.
But then if you look at it from the perspective of the individuals who are being paid a fifth of their US counterpart, it just seems like really freaking unfair.
Yeah.
And it kind of like all of this kind of stuff got me thinking, like, I really want to be able to understand for any moral issue, or for any issue where people have like this is morally good, this is morally bad, this makes you a bad person, this makes you a good person.
Yeah.
Like, what are the fundamental units of argument that they're using?
Yeah.
Whether or not they're able to articulate them.
Yeah.
Through the
what
labor,
what's the water that what's the moral water that they're in?
Yeah.
Like, what are like the axioms of their moral system?
Yeah, and I think sort of the Jonathan Haidt stuff in The Righteous Mind gives one clue as to what these you know, these different like 6 moral taste receptors are.
Yeah.
Similarly, I can't remember the guy's name who wrote it, but What Money Can't Buy talks about how often, you know, if you think of an example of, should it be like, is it okay if there was a situation in America where there was this mum who was having a child who was quite poor, needed money to help raise the child. She auctioned off the space on her forehead to put a tattoo for any brand to advertise on.
Right.
For like $10,000.
Yeah.
Where if you're a free market, bro, you're like, all right, go for it. It's your property. You can do what you want.
Individual autonomy.
Autonomy. It's good. Obviously, you know, it's good for the child because you then have an extra $10,000 to help raise the child. All these good things. But there's something about that, like, that just feels, ugh. Like,
yeah.
And that is when you invoke the kind of moral idea of degradation and sanctity.
Yeah.
Where people are like, you know, is there nothing that is sacred anymore? Is there nothing that is free from the degradation of the market?
Yeah.
And that is a very like moralistic judgment.
Yeah.
And it requires you to then opine about what is the good life.
Yeah.
Beyond individual autonomy and liberty.
Yeah. What matters?
And it's I think it's very hard with, like, a lot of people would feel weird about that, but not necessarily know, like, oh, why do I feel weird about that?
Yeah.
And so an appeal to degradation and sanctity is one of the moral taste receptors that Jonathan Haidt talks about.
Yeah.
And so coming back to our pill discussion, it's like once I read that and started seeing those moral taste receptors in different things, it helped me explain people's behavior a little bit more.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, nice. If you're a lefty, then the 2 moral taste receptors you really care about are fairness and harm and equality or something like that. I can't quite remember exactly what the thing is. And so, okay, that's why people who index very, very highly on those 2 moral things think is an absolute no-brainer. Like, how could you possibly do this insert thing here? Yeah. Whereas people who are right-wing, who are indexed less on those 2 moral taste receptors, a bit more on the other 4, would have a bit of a more of a nuanced view about it. But if all you care about are those 2 moral taste receptors, you would feel that anyone who has voted for the opposite party is just a complete asshole, and how could they possibly do that? Bad thing.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
It's all super interesting stuff that I just love the especially when it comes to this kind of moral stuff, the questions that it poses, and really, you know, the extreme examples of, would you do X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
And why would you do X, Y, Z? And why does it feel distasteful to do X, Y, Z, even though you know that maybe that's the right answer, but it just feels wrong.
Yeah.
I think Peter Singer has some stuff where he talks about this, as I'm told by Lucia. So I want to check out some of that as well.
I think there does seem to be this innate desire for like justice. This concept of justice is just like really just embedded into like the core of every human being.
Justice meaning
just the concept of justice, the concept of like
fairness.
Yeah, fairness, like, justice, whatever. Just
you get what you deserve.
That general concept of like, we can identify when there is an injustice. Like, it's just like this deep, fundamental sense, intuition, whatever you want to call it, of like justice. And like you see it in, I can't remember where I was reading this recently. But even in like little kids, right? Like, it's not something that's socialized, you know, it's not something that's socialized in, you know, a lot of people say it's actually not something that's socialized into you to care about justice. It is just this innate thing of like, human beings can identify things that they would consider unjust and would want to act in a just way for the most part. It's not a cultural thing. It's like, you know, just this really fundamental human thing. Yeah, I think a lot of people on the left really lean into that. And like, I think anyone who looks at that situation would feel that kind of weird pang of like, ooh, it seems unjust, you know?
Which situation?
Oh, like the outsourcing thing of like, it's, you know, everyone can recognize that something feels unjust about that. And then I think the question is like, okay, how much do you care about your intuitions about this thing? Yeah. Basically, like how much do you care about your intuitions around this thing, and like hanging those up?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that Jonathan Haidt argues throughout the book is that moral intuitions come first and rationalizations come second.
Yeah. That's the whole point. Yeah.
If you're on the left, you feel a very strong intuition that paying someone less than you'd pay someone paying someone in Pakistan $5 is bad compared to someone in the US.
Yeah.
And then you'd sort of, once you know that, you're bringing to force all the arguments you can muster to figure that out.
Yeah.
But then it's like, if you broadly support capitalism and globalization and borders going down and free movement of like labor and goods and stuff across borders and all of these other things, which most people, well, a lot of people would be like, yeah, broadly, I agree with that. If you support the idea that individual autonomy is a thing and that people can not be coerced into doing things and people can decide what they want to do, and if someone chooses to work for a lower wage, then who are you to say don't do that?
Yeah.
It starts to become interesting.
Yeah.
Like
it's definitely pretty complex. Yeah. So what are the consequences of you getting? I mean, presumably you're not cancelled, but how did it feel going through that?
Oh, I felt really bad.
Yeah.
Because it was.
Well, when did it happen? Were you skiing, or was it like just early this week?
No, it was earlier this week. It was a few days ago. To my mind, I was asking a genuine question in good faith.
Yeah.
And the responses to it were
The mob.
The mob was kind of taking the most uncharitable interpretation of the question.
Yeah.
And saying, oh, obviously he's asking this as a rhetorical question rather than as a genuine question.
Yeah.
And I can't believe you'd even have the audacity to ask that.
Yeah.
And where I was like, if for a day or two, I was thinking, screw this. I don't care what people think. Like, I want to be a Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
I want to be
a
paragon
startup.
a paragon for free speech and stuff.
Right, yeah.
And why can't we actually just have like nuanced debate about this kind of stuff?
Okay.
But I think what I realized after seeing the quote tweets come in is that like I just actually did not realize how incendiary the issue would be.
Right.
And I think for issues that are incendiary, there is a way to ask the question.
Yeah.
In a way that take that. I think the way I asked that question was just too straight down the line.
Yeah. Too blasé, too like ignorant, too whatever, to this and that, which took away the focus from it being a debate. Yep.
And made it more into an issue of like, oh my God, I can't believe this person's basically saying he wants to exploit the poor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was absolutely not the intention, for the record.
Yeah.
But then I was like, okay, cool. Lesson learned. This is an incendiary issue, which is I just didn't know. Therefore, do I keep this tweet up and put replies to the tweet, kind of justifying myself, be like, by the way, for the record, I do believe in location independent pay. We have freelancers in Romania and Poland where purchase price parity is like half of what is in the UK, but we still pay them UK wages, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Where no one's going to see that. And it's going to keep on gathering momentum. Or do I just sort of take the L and delete the tweet and be like, cool, let me read these 3 books and explore more about this topic. And then I will tweet about it or discuss it in a podcast once I'm a bit more informed as to what's going on.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I think in a lot of these kind of situations of like incendiary issues, just like kind of, disagreements that affect, on issues that are close to people's hearts. I think, what people are really looking for is just that the people on the other side are giving the issue like appropriate reverence of just like, even like a tiny acknowledgement of like, look, I get it, I get it. Now let's talk, basically.
Yeah.
Just like giving it the reverence that like the people on the other side feel it deserves. I think that is kind of like just a massive hack to having more productive conversations, more productive disagreements of just like.
In one of our sessions with our business coach that me and Angus had last year, he pointed something out around the way that I communicate with Angus. So for people who don't know, Angus is my kind of right-hand man on the team, basically runs the business while I do the content stuff. And he was like, this is one of the things that Stephen Covey talks about in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is that be efficient with things, but be effective with people. And often being effective with people requires you to be less efficient.
Yeah.
And he was like, so our coach Sean was saying, look, Ali, I know exactly where you're coming from, being a business owner myself. I know that you want to get to the bottom of this. Angus says something, you're immediately taking into account, you're making a judgment on it, you're incorporating into your worldview, and you're spewing out the result. And that is efficient.
Yep.
But it's not effective because Angus doesn't feel heard.
Yep.
He feels as if you're dismissing this point.
Yeah.
And even though you and I both know that you're making the appropriate judgments in your head and you have all these reasons,
Yep.
Angus doesn't feel that.
Yep.
And the question is, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective?
Yeah.
And you do sometimes need to be slower. And
Yep.
yes, in a dream world, we wouldn't need to do these caveats. We wouldn't need to, in a dream world, when I make a video about how much money I earn, I wouldn't need to spend half an hour virtue signaling about how actually people have had a hard time in the pandemic and stuff. But, and in a dream world, you wouldn't need to show the appropriate reverence to the other side because people would interpret everything charitably and recognize that, okay, when a genuine question is being asked.
Yeah.
In the real world, there is often that sort of, what's the word for it? Like labor you have to put in to get to baseline when discussing anything vaguely incendiary.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then at that point, you can hopefully have a nuanced debate about it.
Yep.
And I think this is why, Molly May's situation blew up because she didn't put the labor in appropriately enough, or the tone in which she said, oh, by the way, I do acknowledge that obviously some people are born into poverty and they don't have the advantages. But the way she said it did not have the appropriate reverence that people wanted. And therefore it's, in a way, it doesn't matter what she said. What matters is that she didn't give appropriate reverence.
Yeah. That's how you douse the flames of incendiary debate.
Yes. At the same time, people do, I can also see the point of view that says, whole like freedom of speech, all that kind of stuff. Like, why should I have to ... Like, why can't people just ... etc. But I think I'm more on the side of, yeah, cool, I get it. I'll take the L. I'll delete that tweet. And if I tweet something like that in future, now that I know it's an incendiary issue, actually give it the appropriate reverence. Yeah, that's warranted.
Well, I think your next move has to be an Apple Notes apology.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking about that. Yeah. I've been Apple pilled.
Okay. I was going to say something related to this. Oh yeah. So Nick Huber, Sweaty Startup. So you said he doubled down on it. Yeah, I saw his tweet doubling down on this. I vaguely saw the discourse around his thing of it, and I saw him doubling down, and I was like, yeah, I love that. Baller. I think a lot of people just find him so aesthetically distasteful. Just every, like, his whole shtick, I think, is like, just people find it aesthetically bad. And then I think people like rail on him. Okay, so for context, if you haven't listened to, I don't know, whatever episode we talked about Sweaty Startup, he is a chap somewhere in the US, like, random part of the US, I don't know exactly where. What he does is, his business is that he acquires self-storage units. So like, this might be just like a warehouse somewhere. And then he it makes them a bit more efficient and then like sells them on. And so he owns a bunch of self-storage units, and then people like rent out self-storage space and they go and put their stuff in there and take it out or whatever. And they pay him like rent on these self-storage spaces. And his business is like, I think essentially his insight is like, look, the old guard of self-storage is not tech savvy. Basically, they don't run these businesses efficiently. I can put some of my own money in and get money from friends and family who want a return on their money. Together, we can maybe pool, like, let's say $1 million in, buy a self-storage unit off of someone else, make it more efficient, and operate that. And then it'll be worth, let's say $1.5 million a couple of years from now, and then you can sell that on to the next guy, and you've made like a 50% return on your money in a couple of years, which is pretty good. So his business is broadly that, and he's now, as of like 1 to 2 years ago, he's like very outspoken on Twitter about it. He tweets threads about like his business, and I think people find him just like really aesthetically distasteful for a couple of reasons. I think the first is that he like really openly talks about money and making money and caring about making money, and like the money he's making. And I think that's against a lot of people's tastes. I think the other thing is that he's often labeled as a grifter. Like a grift is like a
scam artist almost.
Yeah, not a scam, but like
a
not a con, not a scam, but again, just a distasteful way of like making money would be like a grift. I guess it could sometimes be a scam. And he, for example, like has an ebook about like self-storage businesses which you can buy, and he runs an online course about self-storage, about like some business type stuff. And he like obviously on his Twitter he like shows these things of like, hey, starting my next cohort of my course or like ebook, whatever, and he's just like really unapologetic about it. And I think those two things, the combination of like talking really openly about money, caring about making money, wanting to make money, how you make money, I think also just like the domain in which he makes money, like to an outsider, it just seems so like asinine, just like so, like I think if you look at someone who buys self-storage businesses as a way to make money, you'd be hard pressed to come up with a reason why they care about this as a personal mission or any kind of like social whatever out of it, right? Like if someone's like, oh, do the startup, like making the world a better place, like, yeah, you might not believe them, but it's like fine, okay, this person's like kind of deluded, like whatever, he's doing a startup, he thinks he's making the world a better place, etc. Like fair play to him, whatever. This guy is like, literally, I found some alpha, which is self-storage. Yeah, I found a gap in the market, completely arbitrary. I don't care about I don't inherently care about self-storage. I care about making money. I found this weird way to make money, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to tell people about it. I'm going to teach people how to do that. Like, there's so much about him is distasteful, but I just love it for that reason. He's just like so unapologetic.
He's got 250,000 followers for that reason.
Yeah. He's making tons of money. He's like, he's just like loving it.
I think the same people who would find him distasteful would probably find Gary Vee distasteful.
Yeah, and I think also Sweaty Startup, he's also like pro working hard, pro like, look, it's going to be a bit of a grind. Like I'm chilling now, but it was like a fucking grind for like a couple of years at the start, like. But yeah, that kind of stuff. I think that's also probably like a part of the reason why he was like dunked on. And like, okay, here's the thing.
I don't know. I mean, I think the reason he was like, I don't think sort of the thousands of people dunking on him were familiar with him.
Okay.
It mostly seemed to be like people who had stumbled across that tweet on their timeline because someone else dunked on him.
Yeah.
And in isolation, not knowing his background of tomato farms or Sweaty Startup.
He did something about tomato farms, right?
He did like a he did a troll tweet.
Oh, I remember. What was this? I can't remember the details. We talked about it
on the podcast.
I can't remember the details of it.
It was like, here's how anyone can make money in America. Buy a tomato. Plant that tomato. You'll get 4 tomatoes. Those 4 tomatoes become 4 billion tomatoes. Then you're going to be billionaires. Here's how anyone can become a billionaire.
Yeah.
And people took it seriously. And was like, this guy's maths is wrong. What's wrong with him?
Yeah.
So Dr. Parag Patel commented as well. The troll.
BACFA, ACCA.
And loads of people commented on Parag Patel being like, this guy's a chartered accountant. Why doesn't he know the numbers? This is so funny.
Oh yeah. I think one way that you can tell what people think. I think if someone that wasn't Sweaty Startup tweeted that, people would have like assumed it was a joke or like cared much less.
The tomato thing.
Yeah, the tomato thing. But I actually here's an interesting thing I found. I think maybe I mentioned it on the pod before, but the people who you can tell just how rational someone is by their response when someone that they find aesthetically distasteful does something borderline. Okay, so like. The people, there's a lot of people on the internet, I think particularly like the tech community, like see themselves as like very rational and stuff. And like, they're all about like pro-civil debate and like not getting emotional about things, no ad hominem attacks, yada, yada. I think I mentioned before, like there was I thought, oh yeah, I like these folks, I like that way, I aspire to that. And then there was some really immature spat last year, another like tech versus media spat. And like a bunch of these like tech people who like, rational civil discourse bros were just like being really, just like ad hominem attacks, just being like quite unreasonable, uncharitable, because like the enemy, these people they don't like, were like on the other side of it. And I think certainly in myself, if I find someone like distasteful, or if I don't like someone's vibe, if they do like a sort of borderline thing, like kind of normal, could be bad, like, oh, like feel it like, oh, this guy, whereas if I don't like find someone distasteful and they do this borderline thing, it's like whatever.
Yeah, I think it was exactly the same thing in the Molly May situation, where the stuff that she said.
Oh yeah, like
the stuff she said was not novel. Like the hustle bros have been espousing that for years. And like she's saying, everyone's got the same 24 hours. It's a fact.
Yeah,
but there's something about her success where she says, I've worked really hard for it, where it's like, well, your version of working hard is going on Love Island and being an influencer.
You got a reality show and like just got the free pass
like
kind of
all of those things add up to a strong feeling of distaste. And then when that is added to someone saying, hey, I worked hard to get where I am, you can do it too, that then shifts the equation. Whereas if Jordan Peterson said the same thing, like, fine. No one cares.
All right, so you're not cancelled.
I don't know.
We'll find out next week.
No, I'm educating myself about the topic.
Nice.
I've realized that it's not the job of people on Twitter to put the emotional labor into educating me, and so I'll be educating myself and doing tweets and maybe discussing on the pod at some point.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I like one of the things I enjoyed about that is it sort of feels like being back at school or being back at uni, but like researching the question of something that I'm genuinely interested in.
Oh, I thought you meant about like the random conflict, play war. Okay, sorry.
No, I don't think I got cancelled in school very much because it's like I remember I didn't really have that feeling very much when doing medicine itself, but when I did psychology in my third year, specifically on the topic of intelligence, where one of the essay questions were like, do men and women have the same intelligence?
Yeah.
Or is there a difference in intelligence between races? Or is intelligence like a genetic thing or environmental thing?
Yeah.
It's like, that's actually a really interesting question. I'm genuinely interested.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, cool. Let's do all the reading. Let's go down the rabbit holes. And it's sick.
Dude, it's such a different feeling when you're like forcing yourself to read about something.
Yeah.
I think like, I've been thinking about doing this. I decided not to tweet it just because I didn't want to like
get cancelled.
Not get cancelled, but I don't know if there's a way to tweet it with the correct etiquette. But essentially, I think like it's a very different feeling when you genuinely like really want to know more about it. It's almost like a feeling of like thirst for more knowledge about this topic. And I think like at any one point, I think like these days there's maybe like 2 or 3 topics where like I genuinely hunger for like greater knowledge about this thing. And it's like such a different feeling than like, trying to read books because people say you should read more books and like, oh yeah, people say that's a good book. Oh yeah, I'm trying to read like freaking Why We Sleep. I'm trying to read Principles of Ray Dalio, all this kind of stuff. Like there's so much discourse about like reading books, and like reading books has almost become like the end in itself, whereas the end is, acquiring useful knowledge or whatever you think the end might be from nonfiction. And like the hack to reading more books is finding something you care about. If you find that thing where you're thirsty for that knowledge, like you're gonna read a ton of books about it, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I can't remember the last time I cared about the word globalization.
Yeah,
it's like last time I genuinely I think it was from GCSE geography,
right,
or year 9 geography, where it's like something about globalization. Didn't really know what it was.
Yeah,
but then I was like, this genuine question of like, why do some people think it's morally good or bad to pay someone $5 an hour? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of this is about globalization. Cool. Let's read 3 books about it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now I'm reading a freaking book about globalization. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. I think you can do your next newsletter on that or something about like, hey, if you want to read more books, like find something you're actually interested in.
Stop trying
to read more books.
This is like my standard shtick. It's been for a while. I think this was my shtick before Naval tweeted it.
Whoa.
Which is that like, or it might have been after, like, who knows these days.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have the timestamps on Twitter for sure.
Something like, read books you enjoy reading, and then once you enjoy reading, then read books that you think you're supposed to read. If you don't read very much, start by reading Harry Potter, Twilight, start by reading paranormal romance. And then once you get into reading itself, at that point you can be like, okay, let me stretch myself, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to go from 0 to Sapiens if you don't tend to read books.
Yeah, I mean, look, there is a mechanical aspect of like reading words on a page, having an attention span, and doing that activity. I think the thing I'm speaking to is slightly different. But yeah. All right, cool. I think we better wrap things up. You're hosting a dinner party here tonight.
Yeah, it was meant to be for about 4 people. I ended up inviting about 15 and they all said yes. Actually, I ended up inviting about 17 and 2 of them said no. So,
wow. There's 15 people coming.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Making a big corn spaghetti pasta bolognese. Got a Le Creuset Harry Potter limited edition pan this morning because I was like, cool, I need the gear.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is actually the reason I'm hosting this dinner party is because I now have an accountability coach.
Oh yeah.
He's this dude who I pay $300 a month for, who checks in with me every week on a 20-minute Zoom call and says, "What are you working on this week? What are your top 3 goals?
Yeah.
Let's put it in the calendar." And he checks in on it. He sends me a text every few days being like, "How's the dinner party going? How's the book writing going?"
This guy's got a great business. He probably doesn't exist. It's all like auto messages.
It's an actual guy. His name's James.
Name's James, yeah.
It's a company called Commit Action. I'll put a little affiliate link down below. Where they've got like a bunch of coaches, and I think it's sort of like online personal trainers. Each coach manages maybe like 50 clients.
Yeah.
And they probably have this just big CRM where they send an automated text message.
Yeah.
How's variable goal going?
Exactly. Yeah. That's great. Is it working? How long have you had it?
Oh, just like a week or two. No, 1 week. But this week's the 3 things were: number 1, write first draft of chapter 5 of my book, which I've done half of already, so I've got another few days for it. Number 2, work out 3 times. Done it once, need to do it tomorrow and on Monday, and then that'll be ticked. And number 3, I was like, I want to get better at cooking. But I've been saying I want to get better at cooking for the last 3 years. And what I realized recently is that, no one learns to code by learning to code. They learn to code by having a project, and learning to code is a side effect.
Yeah.
And I realized I need a project, and that project is, okay, let me host dinner parties on the reg.
15 people.
Where I have to cook.
A lot of food, mate. I guess spag bol is the kind of...
Spag bol is the kind of like thing you can cook in bulk.
Scale, yeah.
So he said to me, "All right, what's your 3rd goal for the week?" I was like, "You know what? Let's host a dinner party." He was like, "All right, when's it going to happen?" Like Saturday night. He was like, "Cool, let's put it in the calendar."
Yeah.
Like, all right, there we go. now we got 15 people coming over for a dinner party, and it's just like if I hadn't spent 10 minutes on a Zoom call with this guy where he was just asking, "What do you want to do for the week?"
Yeah.
This wouldn't have happened. I would have kept putting it off, but when life gets a bit less crazy.
Yeah, it's not that you want to hang out with your friends; it's that you're an accountability coach.
Yeah, I want to learn to cook, and let's hang out with friends as a side effect.
No, I back it. I do.
So here we are. Anyway, need to do some prep.
Awesome. Oh yeah, I was just going to say I had a little dinner party a couple of nights ago with some lads. There were 4 of us lads.
TFTI.
Yeah, it was the first time I'd had like a male bonding session in a little while. Yeah, I do like sort of male bonding. We were all also sort of from minority groups. There was me, Pakistani, one of the other chaps. I think he's either Indian, Pakistani, I'm not sure. There's Chechnyan, Nigerian, and we're all like tech bros to some degree or another. So there's some classic chat about like crypto, a few other things like that. Classic chat about like, one of them is like, basically like made a ton of money off crypto just in the past couple of years, and now like is facing the void of like, oh, what do I want to do with my life? I don't need to make money anymore. Like what, that kind of thing. And then we're also just like reflecting on sort of, I guess things that are common to sort of immigrants in the UK or sort of minorities in the UK. Yeah, I think. I think one of the interesting things was that we all like live with our parents / family to some degree, despite being like sort of late 20s, have a job and stuff like that. And one of the guys was commenting afterwards, like the next day, that like, it was like really nice that we all like live with our families and stuff, because I think sort of, for white people generally, it's kind of seen as like it's kind of like bad or like lame or something, of like, oh man, you're like 28 and you're still living with your mum, bro, what's up, kind of vibes. Whereas I think in a lot of other cultures, that's kind of like the norm. Like sort of more family centric cultures, I'd say, or like community centric cultures. And so I think he was just kind of commenting that like, it's so nice to like say that and not feel weird about being like, I'm like 29, I'm living with my parents, and like everyone else like gets it and actually is in the same boat. I think that's an interesting observation.
Nice. Good insight.
Anyway, we better wrap things up. You better start cooking.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
See you later. Bye-bye.